just want to introduce our two wonderful panelists that we have joining us today. We have Laura Searle. She graduated in May, and she's currently a graduate assistant and student at Boston College. And we have Leslie Rios. She also graduated in May, and she's an Emerson National Hunger Fellow at the Congressional Hunger Center. And going into our first question, they're going to tell us, I guess, what they were involved in while they were in undergrad. So whoever wants to go ahead and start the conversation first.
Leslie, do you want to start, or I don't mind starting. Up to you.
I don't mind. You can go for it.
Okay. Okay. I was involved in, I feel like everything, but also not enough as a student. I think AJ and Leslie both knew me as students, and they would probably laugh at that, only because I think it took me a while to get involved at St. Ed's. But I was involved in my residence hall my first year. I worked the front desk. I also did work for admissions. So I worked the call team, would call prospective seniors that were applying to St. Edward's and kind of see if they needed help with their application process or if they needed help deciding or anything like that. I also was very, very heavily involved in study abroad. It's actually how I met AJ. I just needed a work study job for the semester before I went to go study abroad, and it ended up being about a 1.5 year internship that really taught me about higher education, and I think was one of the stepping stones that led me to my master's program that I'm currently in. I was also involved in campus ministry, which is how I met Leslie. I would attend some of their activities, but I also did service break experience. I went on 2 trips, international trips. I didn't do a domestic one, but I went on 2 international ones. And I was an orientation leader as well. So with student transitions and family engagement, if I got that name correctly. I did 2 summers working with the new incoming first-year students at St. Ed's. And I also helped mentor a group of first-year students the fall semester of my senior year, so their first semester on campus. So through the same office / I think it was under humanities. I don't know if that still exists or what that looks like now, but that's what it was, I guess, a year ago. So that's kind of like me in a nutshell. But Leslie, take it away.
Thank you. So I think it's similarly like Laura. I was involved in quite a few different things during my undergrad, but I think some of the organizations that really stand out to me right now because they kind of put me on the path I am now would be the Student Government Association. I joined SGA my first year of college just because I wanted to meet new people and get involved with like giving back to my community through SGA. And then I was also got involved with orientation. Like Laura mentioned, I was a cord my sophomore year. Yeah. And then I did the Equity and Justice Council under the Diversity and Inclusion Department and SBE. So I went on 3 service break experiences. One of them being with Laura and going to Peru, which was a lot of fun. And then in addition with that, I was involved in the Austin community, working in the College and Career Center at Crockett High School, and I kind of got that through St. Ed's. So I also consider that part of my involvement during undergrad. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I know y'all are both extremely involved. It kind of leads into our next question. What inspired you to give back to the university while you were in school?
I can take this one. So I think something that really motivated me to get involved my first year was that I was a first generation college student. So I felt pretty lost my first year of college. I felt like I really needed to find that community in order to make St. Ed's my home. So that for me was the Latinx Student Leaders Organization. Through there, I was able to find people who shared similar interests and who were really passionate about making a difference at St. Ed's and in our community. So I think that's kind of where my passion for wanting to give back to the university grew from. I think along the way, I started realizing just how fortunate I was to have the opportunity to have this college education. So that's kind of where continue to want to be involved throughout my college experience. I really want to help other students find their place at St. Ed's, whether that be through orientation, through creating programming with the Equity Justice Council, or even like advocating on students' behalf for student government. I think my passion for me wanting to give back to St. Ed's just comes from a place of wanting everybody to feel like St. Ed's is a place where they can grow and become who they want to be and really go on and take on their world in whatever capacity that may be.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Leslie said. I'm not first generation college student, but I am first generation American. And while that I think looks different for everybody who holds that identity, for me, it was, I think, also growing up, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but it was when you go to college, all these opportunities will happen. You'll open, like all these doors will open for you. And a lot of it, what was being said at home, a lot of what was being said throughout my high school years. And so I just knew, I'm like, well, when I get to college, like it's not just going to be school anymore. Like, yes, that's why we're here, to get our degrees and to study, but it's also, you can learn a lot from the opportunities that kind of come your way and from the connections that you make with various people. And so that's something that it's funny to reflect on now. And I think it's funny to see this now, because the work that I do here at Boston College and the students that I work with, I preach a lot of the same things. Of, if I had not tried to have gotten involved during my time at St. Edward's, I don't think I would be in this master's program. I think I'd be following a very different path that wouldn't serve me in the long run. So I think I was just wanted to really dive into St. Ed's, and I was in a brand new place. I didn't know anybody. And I just wanted to make friends, and I wanted to, kind of see what can happen in these next 4 years, and how can I, learn more about myself and grow, and what's going to look good on a resume when I graduate, whether that be, I didn't know I wanted to go to grad school at the time, or, for jobs, like what was going to look good and what was going to, kind of make me the best version of myself, and what was going to teach me that. So that was kind of and I'm also just a very extroverted person, and I was like, social life, let's go. So part of it was needing work study jobs. And so, needed the money. And so that's kind of how I met other people. And then through that, it was like, oh, like I'm in this club, you should join, or I'm in this organization, you would love it. And I think as my time went on as an upperclassman, my junior, senior years, it was really relying on those like connections I had made during my freshman and sophomore year of the people I'd met. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm in this organization, you would love it, like come join. And that's kind of, I think, what built up my involvement story.
Yeah, I think it's really like important what y'all said about the opportunities that we have at St. Edward's, because I think a lot of the programs that we have are really special to our school. And a part of like the St. Edward's mission is also like their tagline, which is taking on your world, which has like various meanings, like figuratively and also in an inspirational way, which kind of leads into our next question. How would you define taking on your world, and how do you do it?
I'll take this one first. So I think that question of how do I define taking on my world, and like I think that really bleeds into what my involvement story ended up looking like as a student. For me, taking on my world is putting myself out there and being open to new experiences. I firmly believe in holistic education. I don't think that, you can learn a lot with a textbook and four walls and a desk. That's great. And I, to this day, email the professors I had at St. Edward's. They were incredible people with incredible experiences, and I learned so much in their classrooms. But at the same time, I learned so much about myself by having student leadership positions, by living on the other side of the world for 6 months, so by putting myself in a position to do service for 2 weeks without my cell phone, with people that we'd only really known each other for a few months, in a completely different culture. So I think, well, for me, taking on my world, yes, it did mean traveling internationally. I think it also means to really explore these opportunities that are at hand. I think that one of the things that makes St. Edward's so great, and something that often scares a lot of people, is how small it is. And there is so much value in the size of our campus and the size of our community. That really allows you to foster those connections and those relationships, whether it's with your advisor or a professor or your peers. And it, to this day, like some of my favorite moments within a classroom at St. Edward's was me walking in and a professor asking like, oh yeah, like how did that programming thing go that you did for study abroad? Or how did that, like, tell me more about that, what's happening on Ragsdale right now for SBE and things like that. And so having your professor invested in who you are, not just your grade, not just how did you do on that essay or that test, it's how are you growing as a person? And I think that it's largely goes back to those connections of, and I'm not saying you have to share everything with your professor. I was the type of person that my professor needed to know my shoe size, and like I overshare at times, but it's that helps you get the rec letter at the end of the day when you're graduating and you're, looking at grad schools and jobs and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it with this one, Laura. I think a way for me to take on my world was to become the best version of myself that I could be. So I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone to go through multiple leadership experiences throughout my 4 years of undergrad. And I think that's kind of where I even began to find myself in my own passions and my community. And that's kind of where I feel like if I wouldn't have put myself out there, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think Laura's really is right when she says about really making the most out of your 4 years at St. Edward's. Like find those communities where you feel you can make the most change to give back to your to whatever you want to give back to, and really find like mentors within St. Ed's. We are, but there are so many people on campus that are willing to get to where you want to go. So I think taking on your world is really all about making sure you are the best person you can be when you graduate, so you can tackle these complex social issues once you graduate and go on to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful. I know like St. Edward's and also like with the campus ministry, there's a lot of opportunities around Austin, whether it be like Serve One Day or Serve Austin. Did y'all have any like examples or any opportunities that y'all were a part of around like the Austin community?
So I think I had a very unique experience in the sense that one thing that I never would have expected to happen, and loving St. Edward's as much as I do and as much as I did as a student, it was because of the connections I had made on campus through on-campus jobs that I was able to get an internship within the greater city of Austin. When this mentor, was really what they are to me, when they left St. Edward's halfway through my junior year, and then came into like falling into senior year, that entire summer and all, they kept me in mind and randomly reached out to me one day and said, hey, would you like to work at the company where I'm working now? Very much doing things that I was interested in and knowledgeable about. And that really helped me get a job, or really helped me expand my horizons to the greater Austin community. I definitely think that I didn't do a great job of that. And I think that, like I said, my involvement story really picked up my junior year. I wish I kind of had focused more on it my freshman and sophomore years, because I would have loved to have done a Serve Austin, and I definitely tried to, but then it conflicted with my schedule, and it just didn't work out. But I really lucked out that I had someone kind of in my corner that wanted me to come and work for them within the greater Austin community and have that internship, which is something that is so valuable at St. Edward's. And I know I was a psychology major, and it wasn't just within behavioral and social sciences, but across the board, every department is so eager to help you find those opportunities to work or serve the greater community.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I would also recommend looking into like sponsored programs and work study, because that's kind of how I was also able to give back to my Austin community, or just be involved in the Austin community. I was able to get paid to work in the College and Career Center at Crockett High School. So I was really connected with helping first generation students apply for college and navigate them through the financial aid process, and just even applying for college and talking to them through what opportunities are out there, because I think that was something I was really about, and St. Ed's was really able to help me get paid while doing something that I really enjoy doing. So I would recommend just you looking into different things that are happening around campus, because like Laura said, there are so many opportunities here that could also not only help you on campus, but also outside of campus.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. I know, I think St. Edward's also has the effect of like us like getting really comfortable and taking on our world and really like trying to create social justice or change in that way. And both of you all have a lot of like mentoring experience as well. So it just doesn't just start and end with you. You also kind of help other people with the same kind of, you know, ideas. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our next question. So how have you continued to take on your world after graduating? And how do you take on your world right now during this pandemic? And it's kind of a loaded question.
I can take a jab at it. I think a way that I've continued to take on my world is that I really kept the St. Edward's values as a way to guide me through my post undergraduate career. So I think when I was looking at things to do after graduating, I really wanted to find an organization of some sort that continued to allow me to live out my St. Ed's values. So I think for that for me was getting this fellowship with the Bill Emerson National Hunger Fellowship, just because it was really focused on my career, which is policy focused, but also like made sure that I was able to think about food insecurity and anti-poverty work through this anti-racist lens, which goes back to our social justice value that we learned at St. Edward's. So I think just one way you can continue doing that to take on your world is by really thinking about what you learned in your last 4 years and using that to navigate yourself, especially into this unknown territory as you're graduating. I think that could really be helpful for someone who's a little lost as they're trying to find their place in the world.
Yeah, everything times two. So I so working at BC, what I do is I'm, yes, a graduate assistant. This is gonna sound like a really big like plug for BC, but I work in the Office of Student Involvement, which is what at St. Ed's would be considered student life or student transitions and family engagement, the big mouthful of a name. And I specifically advise students that are in student government. So I'm pretty sure I like texted Leslie as soon as I got up here and I was like, guess what I'm doing? Because I ran in the opposite direction in undergrad. When you said student government, I said, no, like that is not me. And it's funny because now that's exactly what I'm doing. And so I think that I rely heavily on my undergraduate degrees, which sounds really lame because you would only hope that after spending all this time and money at St. Edward's, I would be using what I learned. But I was a social work minor, which I think everything is social work. And I think especially with the sociopolitical climate of our country, of our world, it's just, at least for me, it's what I'm constantly seeing. And so working with the students that I do, I advise more or less 50 students. I feel like we're constantly having these conversations because a lot of them come from very different bubbles and very different backgrounds that I was exposed to at St. Edward's. And so I think a lot of what I do, and one of the great perks of my job is getting to teach these students of how to look at things with a different lens, how to think critically, how to work on these skills that are going to help them the second they graduate from campus. And so it's not just about, yes, being the best student government president that you can be, but it's how do you take those skills that you're learning and then transfer it to whatever it is that you do, job, grad school, whatever. So I think that that's something that it's definitely been what I've been up to during the pandemic and taking on my world. I think it's just sharing my skills and sharing my knowledge with other students. We all come into college kind of with blinders on, I feel. We all have these backgrounds, these perspectives. This is what I grew up with. This is the type of schools I went to, things like that. This is the community I come from. To then you're in this place where it's like you're kind of supposed to be an adult, but you're still kind of a child. And it's like, how do I navigate this? I'm supposed to be getting good grades. I'm supposed to be getting involved. I'm supposed to be making friends, but it's a lot to handle. And so I think that that's really tricky to do. And I think that the best way to kind of navigate that is just put one foot forward and just kind of, I feel like I'm reading the second question that's on the screen, and I think I'm kind of like, in my world, I work with students day in and day out. I work with student government. I teach them about different perspectives that doesn't look like them. 100%, it was a really, really big risk, but I think that it sometimes just kind of have to jump off the ledge a little bit, and even, and I think that's something that St. Edward's really taught me, is you just kind of throw things at the wall, see what sticks, and hope for the best, because at the end of the day, that's all you can really do. You're well equipped. If you've learned the skills, you got the degree, you just got to try it. So that was very lengthy and very rambly, and I apologize, but.
No, I thought it was really good insight. And I think like the thing about St. Ed students as well, or even like, when you graduate, I think in the 4 years, you really have more connection for students. And so kind of what y'all have been saying, like if you ever need anything, like you're able to reach out to friends or someone that you knew, and they're there to help you. So things kind of go in full circle. And I was also going to ask, like, do you see yourself being like a steward of the St. Ed's mission? And when you go out or after you graduate, which y'all both have, are you like out of this bubble of like, these social issues that people are fighting for? Are you having now to like continuing to like educate people or trying to fight? Or do you see like other people like-minded that you're working with? Because I feel like St. Edward's, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we're in a bubble of like everyone kind of having the same mindset or the same kind of strength to fight these social justice and be aware of them, or I guess, and quote unquote woke in a way. But once you leave, I guess, like into the real world, it might get a little bit harder. So how do y'all tackle that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I didn't realize how much of a bubble we were until I started my position here in the Houston Food Bank. I feel like we all, in one way or another, think similarly in terms of like the importance of social justice issues and just like just racial equity and all of that. And I think coming into my position at the Houston Food Bank, my title is a equity research fellow. So my whole job revolves around how we strive to make the Houston Food Bank a more equitable organization, and sometimes having these conversations with people who did not have the opportunity to learn about these things in college have been a little hard, especially because it can be very draining, because it's like, how do you explain to someone why racial equity is important if they don't want to see it that way, So I think it's very important for you to also go out into the Austin community, because yes, Austin's a liberal city, but is it really that liberal? So it's like, I think it's really just like taking care of your mental health. I think that's what it comes down to, just making sure you are taking care of yourself at the end of the day and doing what you have to do to navigate this like weird world we are now in, living with pandemic and just everything that's happening around us and everything political. So I think my biggest advice when leaving St. Ed's is just really take care of yourself, do what you have to do to be mentally okay. But yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, well, I'll go into my last question as well. But Laura, do you want to add something?
I would say I don't know how St. Edward's did it, truthfully, but I think regardless of what your major is, we all, I 100% believe, have a very firm grasp on what is social justice and what does that look like and the different ways that that can manifest. And I think graduating from St. Edward's, which was 100% a bubble, and then moving somewhere where it was a polar opposite bubble, or one where it was not at least as saturated as St. Edward's, you have to, sometimes it may feel like you're fighting the battle alone, which is okay. And that might sound scary and that might sound like bad advice, but you kind of have to keep chipping away and soon you'll start finding like-minded people. I think that St. Edward's really taught us to be like, go and protest and speak your mind and say, which is great. Like all 100% I agree, but I think that the ways that you do that may look different as you kind of grow up and depending on where your life goes after the Hilltop. So I think that you just kind of have to keep holding those values true. And I think that no matter what the work that you're doing is, even if you're working a 9-to-5 in a corporate office, you can still find ways to implement those values of the St. Edward's mission and the realities of social justice and how that can transpire into so many different fields.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's also something like to be reminded of. I know I'm graduating soon, and so I have to think about like in the future, or even like here at home. I'm not on campus right now, so navigating that, like trying to fight for a more just world. So going into our last question before we get into more Q&As, if any of our audience has any, what advice do you have for students to take on their world as they navigate this new normal? And you can also just like, because this is also recorded, so for people that aren't on here right now, for future people that are also viewing this.
Yeah, I think my biggest advice and something that kept me going these past 4 years was mentors. I think there was many times that I felt very overwhelmed, very burnt out, and like I could not continue. And I was very lucky that I was able to find mentors and at St. Edward's who were able to guide me through these, I guess, burnouts. It's just like sometimes you just need the reassurance that you're going to be okay. So I think my biggest advice is really seek mentors, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to write your rec letters. Like Laura said, they're the ones who are going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to be the one to give you advice that you need. So I think, yeah, just find good people that will be there for you when you need them.
Yeah, I would also say lean into your interests, lean into your passions. My biggest mentor to this day was through study abroad. And again, that started as I needed a work study job and I knew I wanted to study abroad. I came into college knowing like, I don't care what else I do. That's the one thing. That's the one thing. As long as I get it done, I've checked off every box in life. And it was through something as simple as I said, hey, can I be your front desk worker? That they then, just by looking at my resume, I think we'd met once for some like advising meeting, that they created an entire intern position for me, which then led me to so many opportunities. I learned about international higher education. I learned about just higher education in general. And like I said, without that, I don't think I would be getting my master's in higher education leadership and student affairs. So I think that you should lean into the things that you're interested in, even if you just go to one club meeting and you say, no, that wasn't for me. Hey, at least you tried it. Maybe you met a really cool person. Don't be afraid. I know it's difficult because it's COVID and being with people face to face looks very difficult. It looks very different right now. But say hi to somebody, and just like those simple connections and those simple moments of, oh, we were both standing in line at Joe's and like, oh, I really like your shoes, and like complimenting someone and making small talk. You never know where that conversation can lead. That's how I met some of my closest friends in college, was just something simple of like, oh, we sat next to each other at a training. And before I knew it, we were like hanging out every single night and doing homework together. And we ended up living together for a bit. So I think you also should push yourself. Push yourself to find initiative, like create initiative and go for the positions that you're like, I would never do. And like, I didn't ever consider myself to be a leader in any way, shape, or form until while I was studying abroad. I was super homesick for St. Edward's, and I texted a friend that I had met my freshman orientation, and I said, hey, I'm homesick. I'm going to be in Austin this summer. What do I do? And he's like, you're going to sign up and you're going to be an orientation leader. That's what you're going to do. And I can't really say that I've kept up with this person. They've been in and out of St. Edward's and all that. But if it wasn't for that, I would not have gone into orientation. I would not have met some of my closest friends. I would not have, again, like leaned into this interest of helping college students that I have. So I think that you sometimes just little baby steps to jump off the ledge, because that's how you're going to find some pretty cool experiences. But it's difficult to do during COVID. So lean into every Zoom meeting, lean into every weird Zoom activity. If you're a first year, if it's, hey, go grab lunch with the person down your hall that, maybe you have matching Converse, I don't know, figure something out, find one little thing in common. And if it's just one lunch and nothing comes of it, then nothing comes of it. But hey, at least you tried.
Yeah, I think that's super important to keep in mind as well. I know, Leslie, you had mentioned earlier about like your mental health. I know like at St. Edward's, during the time we were on campus, we had the Live Well SEU movement, or I guess it wasn't a movement, it was like a new motto for the Rec Well Center. But do you want to like add more to like, making sure that you are also keeping up with your mental and physical health?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I attended the HCC um, for assistance, but I don't. I was very scared too because of internal um, whatever. um, but I would really encourage everyone to go to the HCC if you um, what is the word I'm trying to look for? If you're comfortable with doing that, but I think it's also really important for you to just find people who you're very comfortable with opening up to about these things. And I know even just asking any professor who you're comfortable with or any organization advisor, I think they would also be able to point you in the right direction if you're looking for services outside of St. Ed's. I know St. Ed's is really moving into a new direction with the Live Well SEU, and I know everybody has a lot of great advice on ways you can continue taking care of yourself mentally even during this pandemic. So I think don't be afraid to reach out. Honestly, like I think it will really save your life and really help you stay grounded throughout these like next couple months or years, however long we're in this pandemic thing. So yeah, I would say really just reach out.
Also, if I can add real quick on that note, I think I had a lot of trouble in college giving myself grace and giving myself just room to recognize like this is hard. And this was pre-pandemic. Like this was, when things were quote normal. So I think that you have to allow yourself to give yourself grace. This is hard. College is hard. And I think it's even harder with a pandemic. I'm, as someone who's currently a student during a pandemic, like this is really difficult. And so I think that there's a little bit more room for empathy with professors and other classmates of, like I couldn't get this done and my Zoom crashed and, whatever. Because of this pandemic, we're all going through our first pandemic together. But at the same time, like Leslie said, like if you feel like you found someone that you're comfortable opening up about mental health, it's always a good idea, because it feels like it gets worse the more you keep it in. And chances are maybe it's your roommate, maybe it's someone else, but people are probably having a lot of the same feelings. It's actually something that we've been talking a lot in my classes and a lot of the people that I'm meeting in my grad program, where a lot of our field placement works or jobs are all virtual. And there is no opportunity to meet your supervisor. There is no opportunity to meet, your coworkers or things like that. And so a lot of people are kept in their rooms all day where they do school and they do work, and it's isolating. So a lot of people are struggling through that. So if you feel that way, you're not alone, but definitely lean in. And I encourage you to check out whatever mental health resources suit you. St. Edward's does have great options, but sometimes you just have to do a little bit of digging to find what works best for you.
Well, thank y'all both so much for that. Do y'all have anything else to add to anything that we've discussed, or you want to mention one last time? Or I guess I'll give you some time to think. Julia, do you have anything that you want to add or anything that you want to ask?
Um, no, thank you guys for the advice and everything. I was just wondering, like, since you've graduated, like, what's the most helpful thing, I guess, you noticed that St. Ed's taught you, or that, like, you took away from St. Ed's and you're applying, like, in your careers or, like, postgraduate?
I can take this one. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was kind of shocked when I first started my job and first started my grad program of how much I use my undergrad degree, which again sounds crazy because you would only hope that after all the time and money and effort I spent on that degree, I would be able to use it. But I have a background in psychology and social welfare. And while at St. Edward's, I took many a counseling course because for the longest time, that's what I thought I wanted to do. And now in my job or in my work with students and being an advisor, I rely on those skills every single day. I never thought I would. I never thought it would be that important. Like, oh, it's great to have in my back pocket for the rare occasion, but I use those skills every single day of what's the best way to talk to students. I'm very lucky that they trust me with a lot of things. Part of it is just the job. I'm privy to a lot of confidential information, but also they feel comfortable to share things that's happening in their life. I would also say one of the things that, again, kind of going off of the mentorship and what Leslie was saying was take those moments, even if it's with your advisor before you have to register for classes or things like that, that little small talk time, take advantage of it. Because as someone who advises students, all we want to do is get to know you more and get to know who you are. And yes, we care about what you're studying and how our class is going. That's obviously very important, but also we want to know, like, who are you? And like, I value when students tell me, like, Laura, I can't hold the meeting tonight because this is going on at home, or I have this huge exam or whatever, and like be able to rely on me. So I think that, like, because I had those great connections at St. Edward's, I now know how to better support the students that I work with. And also, again, what I learned in those counseling classes, every single day that I'm having a conversation with a student, they come out. So yeah, that's a great question.
And then adding on to what Laura was saying is that I think because St. Edward's is such a small campus, you're able to get to build these relations with people that go beyond the surface level. So I feel like a lot of the skills that I've taken from St. Ed's and applied them to my fellowship, even right now, I've gone from people who weren't necessarily mentors, but I got to really see how they work. So like someone I think a lot about is Dr. K. I got to work a lot with her. And the reason why I was able to get to learn a lot from Dr. K was because, it's St. Ed's really has people who put themselves out there and who are always willing to listen to you and make time for you. And they really prioritize students. So everybody's always willing to give you their time. So I think really taking advantage of that opportunity at St. Edward's is going to put you so far ahead than other people graduating from these big schools where they feel like they are just a number. So I think going back to what Laura was saying, it's like building those connections and just learning, being able to like learn from everyone around you is what's really going to help you once you graduate.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. Okay. If you don't have anything else to add, I'm going to transition to our next part. So in case you missed it, we are currently hiring for what my position is right now since I'm graduating soon. So Julie, if you're interested or anyone else viewing this, check out our open position on Handshake. You can see it on the My Hilltop. We have 73 questions with Brother Larry Atkinson. That's live on YouTube, and you can also go to our Linktree, link.tree/H4H. And then we're also on social media. So if you want to follow us at SUH4H, and we're also on Collegiate Link. And lastly, if you'd like to make an immediate impact on the Hilltop, you can visit our bit.ly/H4H gives. There's a really cool video that I had put together that also gives you more information. So you can visit that. Again, I just want to thank Leslie and Laura for joining us. I will definitely really appreciate everything you'll have to say. I definitely knew when I was searching for people to join our panelists that I wanted to reach out to y'all because you also had a big impact on me while I was an undergrad. So just thank you again for joining us.